All right, everybody, just hold on just a second. I'm almost there. Whew. All right. Sorry about that. I am running just a little bit behind, as I find myself doing quite often these days. There is just so much to take care of, so much to attend to. It seems like I can never find time which is appropriate. Of course, that lame little introduction was because we are talking about finding time today. Finding time is an extremely important topic in the world of education today. Seems like we're always making adjustments and counter adjustments and responding to different requirements and edicts, and having to be extremely flexible, extremely overworked. How in the world can we find time when we're stretched too thin? We are going to explore that important topic today. First, a couple FAQs. There will be a recording of this available, so if you want to review anything that we covered today, or you just want to see more of my smiling face, you can go to vaei.org. We will also share all of the resources that we'll be covering today, including a link to these slides. There will be a link in the chat box. In fact, it just appeared. If you go to the chat box, you can see a link to all of those resources. Again, so you have them right there at your fingertips. And last but not least, we have the amazing and talented Robin behind the scenes to answer any tech questions that we might have. Robin, would you like to say hello to everybody?
Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us today.
Outstanding. So if you do have any problems, just enter a question in the chat box to her, and she will be happy to help sort through those things. Also, those are some questions that people ask us. One question I have for you is, do you have a pencil or a piece of paper handy? Maybe both of those things together, a computer, something to take notes with. My goal for all of these webinars is to share something practical, something that you can put to use. And so the ability to just take a quick note, make a quick note of something, and be ready to put it into practice would be awesome. We want to make this applicable. We want it to have some value to you and to your students. Speaking of value and speaking of application, I'd like to talk about our sponsor for just 1 second. These are Blue Apple projects. These are resources that support teachers who want to bring project-based learning to life in their classrooms. They've got all of the online plans, lesson plans, resources. They even come with all of the physical supplies that you would need, because Blue Apple projects are all about saving you time. Very appropriate for our topic today, saving you time so that you can do what you do best, which is teach. So as soon as we're done, check out blueappleteacher.org. Now, before we dive into our topic today, I'm curious, who is here? Robin has opened that poll up. If you could just indicate what grade levels you teach, anywhere from kindergarten up through 12th grade, pick the one that best applies to you. I'm curious who we have in our audience today. And Robin, as soon as we've got a good number of those in, go ahead and close that out and let us know what we've got.
All right, I'm just gonna give it a few more seconds here as they keep rolling in.
Some last minute responses, and then let's see who we have here.
All right. So at the top, we have 57% middle school. And then lower elementary, upper elementary, and high school are all tied at 29%.
Very interesting. Outstanding. So lots of those middle school teachers who are looking for tips to find more time. We hope that we share some that you can put into practice right away. So here's the agenda for today. We've got 3 chapters. First of all, what to do in the event of an emergency. Well, we're going to explore how emergencies, especially plain emergencies, connect with the topic of time management. Then I'm going to make a very awful noise, and we're going to draw a connection between that noise and a really important principle that will help you save time. And then last but certainly not least, we're going to share a 7-word revolution in managing time, finding more time in your classroom, a big idea that we can express in a short way that we hope is going to really have a profound impact for you. The first one might be some stuff that you know already, but it's still a great reminder, and then it's just going to get a little bit more intriguing as we go on. So stick around. I will warn you, some of what I say might be controversial. Some of what I say might be something that you don't want to put into practice in your classroom at all, and that is fine. You know your kids best. You know your situation best. Feel free to pick and choose. Again, the hope is just that you find something that you're excited about putting into practice with your students. So let's get started. We're going to talk about emergencies, especially airplane emergencies. And the one big airplane emergency that we're all aware of is that sometimes the cabin becomes depressurized. And then we've got that whole thing that they talk about at the beginning of every flight, where you've got this mask that comes down. And we all know the really important principle here. Before you help anybody else out, even if it's a dear old granny or a tiny little toddler, before you help anyone else out, you've got to do what? You've got to put your own mask on first. And the same principle is really important for teachers. Before you, as an educator, give your time and energy to the world, you need to energize yourself. If you don't have the energy to give, you can't give it to the world. I love this quote because when we think about finding time, well, there's no way to find extra time. No matter how hard you look, there are only 24 hours in a day, unless it's that day where we fall back or you travel west over a time zone. You're not going to find any extra time. So it's really about making the most of the time that we have, and that requires that we are energized and ready to use our time to the fullest. And what you discover is that when you are energized, you can be more efficient. And when you're more efficient, time magically appears, just like that clock appearing from that magic hat and dancing around. When we're energized, we find more time. So this is not just me talking about it. This is demonstrated scientifically in studies time and time again. Famous recent one out of Iceland found that when they took thousands of workers and put them on a 4-day work week instead of a 5, well, my goodness, their well-being went up across the board. Better leadership, feelings about leadership, more commitment, more stimulation, more empowerment, better work-life balance, and lower stress. But not only did their well-being go up, they also were more productive. Not more productive per hour. They actually got more work done in 4 days than in 5. Now, you're probably not going to stop showing up on Fridays, but the important principle is that when we find ways to energize ourselves, we're more effective at our job. And our jobs are really important. So we really want to make sure that we have the energy to get done everything we need to, so we have more time to do what we want. It's not just Iceland. This principle has been demonstrated in country after country, in company after company. When workers are energized, they get more and better work done. So what are some of those energy boosting tips? Well, the first one, I want us to take a lesson, take a page out of our students' lives. Students are creatures of boundless energy. And in part, in a large part, that's because they live curious and creative lives. You see that concrete up at the top? Concrete is a fascinating substance. It's one of the most abundant, in fact, it is the most abundant man-made material on Earth. So you encounter it every day, but when you take time to dig just a little bit underneath the surface, you find all sorts of fascinating things about it, about its material properties, about its history and its uses throughout history. Even the mundane things can be fascinating when we take the time to look. So one thing you can do is adopt an attitude that everything is quite interesting if you look hard enough. Now, sometimes it's really easy to find those interesting things. So another way to live a curious and creative life is to keep your eye open for the things which blow your mind. Blue Apple projects, our sponsors, are all about making Blue Apple teachers, the teachers who kind of like stand out from the crowd. That blue lobster down there, it definitely stands out. If you're curious about that, do a little research. Why are some lobsters bright blue, and what are the ramifications of that? And we want to be creative as well. So taking a little time to make, to build, to make, and to create things can be really valuable for helping you to live a fully energized life. So a couple strategies: a question a day. Keep a notebook next to your bed. Make sure that you wonder one thing every day. When you do that, you'll find that your entire life opens up to a little bit more curious attitude. Or keep a mind-blown journal. Try and collect those things which really fascinate you. When you can live curious, a life of fascination, then you live with more energy and excitement. Maybe spend 15 minutes every morning making something. Maybe it's a bowl, like that potter down there, but maybe it's a poem or a song or a picture. Sometimes we feel like we have to be excellent at things to create. But the point is, when you take the time to do those acts of creation, you energize yourself to live a fuller life the rest of your day. I love this for a question prompt. If you're having trouble coming up with a question, just ask, are there more of one thing or another? The internet is obsessed right now about whether there are more wheels or doors in the world. And that's a question that really opens up some deep thoughts about different cultures and about how things are engineered. You can use that as a scaffold to wonder about all sorts of wild things. Now, you can use that with your students. That's great. But you can also use it as a human being, because we want to live curious and creative lives. Another great one, again, we all know that we should exercise, but do we take the time to do it? Sometimes it's about just taking one small step. So making sure that you get 15 minutes of movement in the morning. Maybe it's going for a hike or doing some yoga. It's helpful for you to set aside some time to do that. You've known it for a long time, but maybe it's just some guy in a webinar telling you that's going to be the one little thing which pushes you in that direction. So if that's what you're thinking right now, if you're thinking, oh man, I really should do that, write it down. Take that note, put it down on paper. Sometimes signing up on the dotted line is what it takes. So one great strategy is to sign up for a league. It's really helpful. It's a great aid to sign up for something. Sign up for a pickleball league. Sign up for a race that you want to run or for a swim class. Getting yourself on the dotted line can be a great commitment to doing something that you know is going to give you a little more energy throughout the day. Same thing with eating right. I call this the single salad strategy. Making one small shift. Just signing up right now, writing down one small shift that you want to make can really change your energy structure throughout the day. So maybe it's adding whole grains or replacing a fatty meat with a lean meat or replacing a sweet with fruits or vegetables. For myself, I prefer a banana. Powers me up, gives me the energy that I need to finish the webinar strong. Making one small, healthy shift can be exactly what it takes in order to shift your energy level and help you find more time in your day. Same thing, maybe you want to drink more water, stay hydrated, lay off the caffeine after 4 p.m., set a regular sleep time. Making one little shift to do the things that you really want to accomplish can be all it takes to shift your energy profile. And the last little tip here for increasing your energy levels is to funify your life. Look at the guy in the middle of that top picture. I hope that at some point in time in the last couple of days, you've had an opportunity to make that face. Think about the last time that you felt that sort of energy. Who were you around? What were the circumstances? And try to put yourself in those circumstances or with those people more often. Part of the way that we energize our life is to remember that it's supposed to be fun. We're supposed to enjoy it. So maybe it's going out for cocktails with your friends. Maybe it's having a board night. Whatever it is that makes you really enjoy life, gives you something to look forward to, can be a great way to make yourself a better teacher. So again, if that's you, if that's speaking to you, write it down, take a note. I'm going to invite some friends to go out this Friday. Maybe it's play. You want to incorporate more play into your life. In the bottom left are some pentominos. We just released a great new resource, a bunch of games for students to play, but that's not just for students. So in your resource doc, you can check out games. You can play them with your kids, but you can also remember to play yourself. It doesn't have to be board games. You can do physical play. Sometimes as adults, we think we're too dignified to engage in physical play, but we only have so much time here where we can enjoy the great world that we're living in. Don't waste too much time being dignified and forget to have fun with it. So last tip there is look for ways that you can play and have fun. This is one of the saddest graphs in the world. And this explains why kids have so much more energy than we do. That's the number of times that children and adults laugh each day. We need to incorporate more fun, more play, more curiosity, more creativity, more activity in order to energize ourselves. So if you are feeling like that rope, remember that one great way to find more time when you're stretched too thin is to make your rope stronger. I hope you found or thought of one little thing that you can do in order to accomplish that. And I'd love to hear what you're interested in right now. That poll is open. You can check all of them if you want, or just a couple. I'm curious, which of those do you want to choose to energize yourself? And hey, maybe you didn't like any of those, but just listening to them made you think of a different idea, something that you would like to do to help you live a more energetic existence. All right, Robin.
I'm going to give it a few more seconds here as they roll in.
I'm curious to find out. I'm living a curious and creative life right now. I'm curious to find out what people chose. All right, what do we have?
All right, so at the top at 75%, you have exercise and funify life. At 50%, eat or drink or sleep. And 38%, be curious and creative. So all great ideas.
Marvelous, outstanding. Now, that's about addition by addition, adding energy by adding something that energizes us. It's mainly stuff we do away from school. But we also have some stuff that we can do at school as teachers, where we can do some addition by subtraction, take some things off of our plates. And the very first one, the very first thing that we want to do is, do you hear that? I don't know if it's picking that sound up. Oh, yes, it is. That's the sound. You know what that sound is? That is the very awful noise. That's some feedback. Feedback and grading is one of the most important places where we can save time as teachers. We have this feeling as educators. I know it. Grading is pain. In the words of the dread pirate Roberts, grading is pain. And so we end up in these situations where we're frantic, and the greatest dream that we have is just to be able to take those papers and push them off to the side and do a little dance move instead. Feedback and grading can give us a lot of stress and can use up a lot of time. And here's a really important principle. We don't need to mix the two. Research has shown that if we give a grade, students don't pay attention to the feedback. And so if you want to give some feedback, don't grade it. Save you the time of grading and logging that. If you want students to pay attention to the feedback, don't grade it. If you want to grade it, you don't have to give the feedback. Save yourself that time. Now, if you give a grade and students want to know why, they'll come and seek you out. Now they're receptive to it. Now your feedback is actually going to be impactful. That's what we want. So by not mixing grading and feedback, we can save lots of time and energy. Another really important principle when we give feedback is minimalism. We don't need to use a lot of words. We can be a little bit more laconic, right? Sparse with our feedback, and that can actually deepen student learning. Quite often, we have situations like this where we get some student work that's a real mess, and we have a tendency to want to just go to town and fix that work up and really hone it and make it as pure and elegant as possible. But the point of feedback is not to make the work as good as possible. It's to help the student learn as much as possible. And we can do that by giving less feedback. We can tell them specifically what is wrong, but we don't need to go through all of the how. Let them do that. So instead of us figuring out how to get rid of those words, instead of having us figure out how to make it more elegant, we can let the student do the work. They might not come up with as good of a final product, but they're actually going to be doing the thinking, which means they're going to be doing the learning. I'll say it again because it's so important. Feedback should improve the student, not the work. And we can do that by telling them specifically what the problem is, not how to fix it. To fix, not how to fix it. We also want to give formative feedback, and one great tool that we do for that is rubrics. You've seen rubrics before, got all these different categories. We've evaluated what it looks like to do well or mediocre or poorly in each area. This is quite often students' response. It's categories we created, descriptions we created, marks that we gave them. They're not receptive to that feedback. And again, science shows that if students aren't receptive to the feedback, it's not going to make a difference. And so I love this tool for student self-evaluations. Give them the rubric, but just have them focus in on those categories and have them rank them from the thing they do the best to the thing they do the worst. This really forces them to critically analyze their piece. They can't just give themselves 3s in all the areas. They really have to think critically about their strengths and their weaknesses. And then you, as an educator, can really focus in on those areas that they want feedback to improve. They can come to you with these areas that they have identified as areas for improvement, and then you sit back and say, oh, I'm so glad that you asked, because your students are receptive to that feedback. And the last one is about trees falling in the forest. The last tip for feedback is about trees falling in the forest. You wonder if it makes a sound. Well, as teachers, we quite often have this impression that if a student learns something and we don't grade it, it didn't count, right? The riddle for teachers is, if a student has a rich learning experience, but we don't log it, did it really matter? And the answer is yes. And yes, by the way, there is a connection between the tree falling in the forest and the word logging. There's a pun there. I'll let you build it yourself. So log less learning opportunities where kids can really deepen their thinking, or where we can see how students are doing without having to log it. Those are really valuable and powerful time savers. So instead of giving a quiz that you have to mark, or that you have to write and mark, have them do a brain dump instead. So in the middle of your study about electricity, have them make a list. What do you know about electricity? Brain dump. Get as much as you can on that paper. Have them share with somebody else so they can build on their ideas and correct misunderstandings. You don't have to grade a thing. You don't have to write a quiz. The students will still do the learning. The important thing is that they're retrieving what they understand. That retrieval practice is why their learning is solidified. So it saves you the time doing all that quiz work with a simple brain dump. You want to gauge where your students are, how confident they are. You can do a simple fist to 5. You can have them just express how confident they are. Or when you're asking for volunteers, instead of just having people who know it raise their hand, make everyone raise their hand. If they're really confident, all the way up. If they're kind of confident in the middle, not confident all the way down, you get some formative feedback on how your students are doing. And you don't have to grade a thing. Got that strategy from the author of Boredom Busters and Frustration Busters, Katie Powell. Make sure you check her books out. Now, I am curious, which of those strategies do you really think is useful for you? Which one are you going to use to save yourself time and energy? Not mixing grades and feedback, telling them what to fix but not how, letting them rank the rubric so you know where to focus your feedback, or really working on developing logless opportunities where your students can do the things that you need them to do to learn without worrying about making sure that you write it down. Or maybe it gave you a completely different idea. All right, Robin, what do we have there?
All right. 80% at the top, 80% don't mix grades and feedback, followed by what to fix, not how at 60%, logless feedback at 40%, and rank the rubric at 20%.
Marvelous, outstanding. I love just this idea of breaking those grades and those feedback apart. That will save you so much time, energy, and stress. So we talked about how to energize yourself by taking care of your own mask first. We talked about feedback and grading and how to save ourselves time and efforts there. Now it's time for the 7-word revolution. I won't tell you the 7 words till the end, but I will tell you that they all have to do with making your students do the work. This is great for your students and it's great for you. So one great way that I love to do it is the strategy called open their gifts. Here, you think about what your different students are good at, and then you use their talents and skills to accomplish something in your class. So if you have a student who is great at art, you can have them do your bulletin boards. If you have a student who's great with organization, you can have them get things sorted out in your class. We've got a tool here that you can use, which will let you get some ideas for your students. But the big idea here is just that if you leverage your students' gifts and talents to get work done in the class, well, they feel respected and valued and seen, and you feel like you've got a little bit less to do. So 2 birds, 1 stone, 2 birds, 1 net, everybody wins. Another really great strategy, some of you have spent a long time looking at different websites. I won't name any by name, but they're places where teachers occasionally pay other teachers trying to find just the perfect worksheet. Instead, After you've learned a concept and you want students to solidify their skills, well, let them build the worksheet. Make them come up with 12 questions. And then here's the twist, have them sort them from easiest to hardest. They really, again, need to think critically about this skill. You get to see what your students think is really hard, and you don't have to spend any time looking around for those worksheets. Another one that I love is start with the end. Instead of figuring out exactly how to teach a concept to students, you can give them that concept or that question at the beginning of class and let them figure it out. What I love to do is I love to look at all of the different answers that students have. I have them solve it individually first, look at all the different answers that they have and see how many people think each answer is correct. And then we just let them talk. We let them share ideas. We let them prove whether their idea is right or wrong by getting manipulatives or drawing pictures or citing textual evidence. And then at the end, we reveal the best answer, and we can see visually how the truth spread through the class. Were they able to successfully learn things themselves? Again, without you having to figure out exactly how to explain it to them, they can figure a lot of that out for themselves. So again, this gets students thinking about how they are going to understand the concept and communicating their understanding to others. And because they build that understanding themselves, they learn it better, and you don't have to do a thing. You just get to stand back and be the magician who watches that magical alchemy of student conversation and collaboration. So again, we've got that tool available for you, but the big idea is just have your students vote on which answers they think they're right, have them collaborate and see how the truth spreads through your class. Great strategy. You can use it in any area. Start with the end. Instead of having to come up with ways that your learning is relevant, I love the relevant elephant. Put an elephant on the wall of your classroom, and on that elephant, put the different topics you're studying, and then have students come up with the ways that they could use that in their lives. Again, shift the load to your students. They're going to find that even more relevant when they came up with it themselves. And you could even use some of those to launch little investigations or big projects to show students how they can use their learning outside of the classroom in ways that they came up with themselves. So here they are. When we think about shifting the cognitive load in our classrooms, we can think about these 7 words. If you're saying them a lot, then you are doing your students a very valuable service. I don't know. What do you think? Shift the load to your students, because the person who's doing the talking, the person who's doing the thinking is doing the learning. All right, one last poll, and then we'll do a big giveaway. So how do you want to shift the cognitive load to your students? Choose all of them that apply. What do you want to try? Open their gifts, own the worksheet, start with the end, the relevant elephant, or did this spark your creativity? Right, we're all about living creative lives. Did it spark your creativity and give you a brand new idea? Robin, what do we got for them? What are the top answers?
All right. 67% open their gifts and start with the end, both at 67. And then both at 17% own the worksheet and the relevant elephant.
We all like, or many of us like, open their gifts and start with the end. Marvelous. I love start with the end. So versatile, so flexible, and so deep as a learning opportunity. Love the fact that people are going to be using that in their classroom. All right, we are almost at the end, but we still have a big giveaway to do. In 97 seconds, I'm going to be giving away a free Blue Apple project valued at over $124.95, over it by 5 cents. But first, if you liked what you heard today, if you found something valuable or applicable, you are going to absolutely love our next webinar. Go ahead and sign up. It's completely free. It's all about student engagement. Extremely important topic. And if you liked what you heard today, well, you know, in a webinar like this, we don't really get to talk. We don't get to work together. My favorite experience is when I get to sit down with teachers and really help support them in the great work that they do. So if you liked what you heard today, I would love to come to your school and work with you. We can fit your budget, your schedule, pick content areas that are relevant to you and to your school. So check out blueappleteacher.org/flexpd. I'd love for us to get together. And so that brings us to the end of our day. When I leave, as soon as I disappear, a survey will pop up. If you fill that survey out, you can give some feedback on what you heard today, and you'll also be entered to win one of those Blue Apple projects. And so in conclusion, I would just like to say a couple of things that do not get said enough to teachers. You are incredibly important. Your work matters. And even though you might not see it every day, there are lots of people who greatly appreciate the work that you do. Thank you. You are awesome.